Hello and welcome to another issue of Volusia County Issues. I'm Crazy Eddie, Eddie Colosimo, and my guest today is Chief Mike Chitwood from the Daytona Beach Police Department. Chief, welcome and thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come in.
Thanks for inviting me here.
It's been great. You and I come from the same neighborhood. Let's give these guys an opportunity to find out just what we're about, because you added real color to Daytona Beach when you came in here.
I don't know whether that's good or bad, but...
Well, it's great. It's great because what you did was, I think you finally put the word scumbag into the dictionary if it wasn't there before. And I know that when you first came into Daytona, it was really a rough ride for you. People didn't know how to take you. You and I came from the same neighborhood. Your father is still the chief in...
Upper Darby, Pennsylvania.
Upper Darby, Pennsylvania.
49 years in law enforcement.
Good Lord. I married my first wife out of Darby, Pennsylvania.
Right up the road.
Right up the road, yeah, Darby and Upper Darby. Now, did you work for your dad? What was your background in police work when you got started?
My father had already left the Philadelphia Police Department.
Okay.
He was hired at one of the first 19-year-olds hired under the Rizzo administration.
Oh.
Rizzo was the police commissioner way back when, in the 60s.
Oh, I remember Rizzo.
And he spent 20 years with the Philadelphia Police Department, and he left to become the police chief in Middletown Township, Pennsylvania.
I know Middletown.
Just outside of Philly.
Yep.
He was there for 4 years, and then he went on to Portland, Maine, where he was the chief for 18. And for the last 6, he has been the police chief in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. So I joined the police department in 1987. So he was already long gone when my turn came up. I joined, I was 23 years old and did not want to be a cop. Hated cops, was in trouble all the time as a kid, very mischievous. So the last thing I wanted to do was follow in the old man's footsteps.
I used to, I'm a lot older than you are.
Not by much, though.
Oh, I think so. We used to go down to the Cobbs Creek Parkway for our rumbles. Were they still doing those when you were a cop?
Well, yes, Cobbs Creek. I worked in the 18th District, which is where the Cobbs Creek Parkway was for years. I mean, I was in narcotics there. I was a sergeant there. I was a detective out there. So West Philadelphia, we're very familiar, especially when you Delaware County boys used to come over the line and create all kind of havoc.
Well, that's why we did it, because we didn't want to cause on our own neighborhood. It was fun, but. Then so you became a cop where then?
Philadelphia.
In Philly.
I spent nearly 18 years in Philadelphia. Started out in Center City, Philadelphia as a patrol officer. I went to narcotics, got promoted to detective, worked in West Philly. And one of the things with the Philadelphia Police Department is once you cross that river, that Schuylkill River, they think you know your way around that there. So basically you stay out there. Yeah,
so, the Schuylkill River.
Schuylkill, exactly, exactly. If you haven't ridden on that road, you have no idea what we're talking about unless you see that.
At that time, it was the biggest parking lot in the country, I think they called it.
It still is.
Still is?
It still is. It's amazing. Every once in a while when I go back up there, because my daughters are up there, and you get on that thing, if you get on at the wrong time, you're like, why did I do this? Might as well just take the paper with you. You're going to sit there and read it cover to cover.
This is great. I love going over some of the things from the old neighborhood. I left there over 35, almost 40 years ago. But this is great because I still remember a lot of these names and places and the things that we did up there at the time. Now, let's kind of get on to some of the issues that we're going to cover here today. And one of the big issues I've been asked to talk to you about is the cameras. The cameras have been a big issue here all over the state. Are they going to stay? Are they going to go? What's the deal with these things?
Whether they stay or go is clearly up to what the state legislature rules.
Yeah.
The House has all kind of things they want to put into a bill that'll make them stay, and the Senate will probably have the final say. My perspective is clearly and only a public safety issue. We have had people run down crossing, a visually impaired person crossing Beach Street just gets flattened crossing the street at 6 o'clock in the morning at ISB and Beach. There's nothing there. There's no way to catch this person. We have a motor vehicle homicide. We have no leads. We have no anything. You are more likely, as a motorist, to be killed or severely injured in a T-bone accident than any other kind of accident. A T-bone accident is just what it is. And most of those T-bone accidents are caused by the person running the red light.
Right.
So for me, I don't care if we ever issue a ticket. If we have no T-bone accidents, we have no auto versus pedestrian, it's a win-win for us from the law enforcement perspective. People will say, well, it's Big Brother watching you, but when you go to New York, when you go to New York City, isn't New York City ringed with security cameras because of terrorism? Don't these cameras play a role for us in burglaries, in robberies, in drug dealing? Because if you're out there selling dope or doing crime, you're not going to stop at a red light. You're going to blow the red light. In some cases, that's a lead for us. It's the description of the car and the tag. Even if it's stolen, we know what to look for. And lastly, driving is a privilege. It's not a constitutional right. And when we all took the test, where did it say it was okay to run a red light? If the cop's not there, it's okay to go through the intersection.
Well, as you know, I ride a motorcycle 7 days a week, 365, rain or shine. It's a big bike, and it's got 30 feet of cloth flying behind it. The American flag, the MIA flag, both 3 foot by 5 foot flags. But believe it or not, they still don't see me. I've been riding since I was 12 years old. When I come up to a traffic light or an intersection, I still remember what my mommy and daddy said to me. Look both ways. It doesn't matter if that light's green or not. Look both ways. Because I have seen and lost so many friends on motorcycles. And it boggles my mind. One of the things I want to ask you for, why can't the police do something?
We need a law that says texting or talking on a cell phone, like in California, it's illegal. You need the teeth to do that.
Isn't there a law? Isn't there a law that says that you are required to have both hands on the wheel at all times?
I don't know about that. You're going to get into traffic law? I don't know. I'd have to start at home because you could drive down the street and see my cops driving down the street talking on their cell phone.
I know. That was the next thing I was going to say.
Come on, we're human too. But what you bring up a great point. You get behind the wheel of basically a car as a missile.
Right.
You put your windows all the way up, you crank the air up, you turn the radio up, and now you add the cell phone and texting in. It's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
Because I mean, they can't see you for starters. They can't even hear you. No. So, I mean, I agree with you. You know, we in the department have a thing investigating accidents. We go for your cell phone records. Automatically, we're going to subpoena your cell phone records to find out if you were on the phone at the time of the accident. Yeah. So, you know, that hasn't been met too well with the union, but you know, it's all about public safety. We're not above the law. We're not going to break the law to enforce the law. We have to enforce it on ourselves also. Right. But it wouldn't be a bad thing for the legislature to pass a law that says, you know, you're not good. Texting and driving's out. If you get caught on a cell phone, here's what the fine is. I think Pennsylvania has a law. California has one. There are several other ones like that. But the 2 hands on the wheel, I know that's how we're trained too. Yeah. But I don't know if there's a law that says you have to keep 2 hands on the wheel.
All right. There's a suggestion for you. Get on the phone, call your legislator, get on the internet, send them an email, tell them we want a law to get cell phones out of their hands of these people on the road. Unless you're one of them. And if you are, shame on you. Gangs. Let's talk about gangs. A lot of people are not aware of the gang situation, the gang problem, what we really have in our area. What is the story on our gangs?
Volusia County Sheriff's Office has a very, very good gang unit. We piggybacked off them. When I first got here, we didn't have a gang unit. We sat down with their unit members, and then we started to educate ourselves what to look for. We're not, thank the good Lord, L.A., Chicago, Houston. We don't have that Bloods and Crips kind of a big thing that tears a city apart. What we have hybrid gangs. We have the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings, the Folk Nation. They're smaller, but you have more indigenous to their neighborhood. We just did a huge operation, the 819 operation.
Are these ethnic groups, or are they just, no?
They're ethnic groups, but then they're also, I'll give you an example, 819. The 819 has taken off of a building on South Street. Predominantly African-American gang. They tattoo themselves. They're involved in criminal activity in their neighborhood. Then you have the South Side Boys, who are from South Street. Then you have the Port Orange Boys, who are predominantly white. They're nice enough to tattoo themselves Port Orange on the side of their neck. and they act in their own neighborhoods. However, one of the things I see in Florida that I never saw in Pennsylvania was they'll cross paths. You'll make a car stop where you'll have 2 Hispanic females, 2 black males, 2 white males, and a white female in the car, and a couple guns in the car. Well, clearly they're all not going to a drive-in movie. They're up to something. So we try to stay on top of them. We look to prosecute them under the state law, the state gang law, and under the federal law. As in the 819, the word was in the neighborhood they were moving a quantity of crack cocaine, pills, and guns. Well, the ATF, we partnered with them. They gave us an undercover ATF agent, and we went out and we made over 100 drug buys in a certain geographical area of the city. And then the indictments came down. Of the 50, 35, I'm lying to you, I think of the 55 indictments, 28 went federal. All 28
Wow.
with a minimum of 5 years, minimum mandatory of 5 years. So my message is, if you think you're going to be out there slinging dope and selling guns in the neighborhood, you better be careful, because you may find yourself in federal prison.
I really had to laugh when I read the news after that particular bust. And one of the parents, I guess, just jumped all over you. My boy's a good boy, and he had a rap sheet as long as your arm.
Right. And he's about to get indicted again. I love it. There's a second operation that's about to come to fruition. It's running on the beach side. It's part of the Safe Streets Task Force, which is made up of Daytona Beach, South Daytona, the Sheriff's Office, and the FBI. And for the last 4 years, they have been targeting these gangs that run on the beach side and criminal activity up there. And the state attorney's office has all the warrants, and we're hoping that sometime over the summer he's going to pull the trigger. And that young man, who was innocent as new snow, newly fallen snow, is about to get himself indicted again.
I guess the average citizen doesn't really see the gang activity on the street. So we're not as aware of it as you are. But primarily, they're dealing drugs, they're moving guns.
Involved in assaults. I mean, really, we have a PowerPoint that we put together with the Volusia County Sheriff's Office and the FBI Safe Streets Task Force. We go out to community groups to present it, because I think as a parent, it behooves you to look at your kid's copybook, see what kind of doodling is on there. Look at the way they dress. I mean, I just learned recently that sports teams, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Atlanta Braves, the California Angels, their insignia represents gangs.
Really?
So you think these kids are walking down the street with baseball hats on. Here, they're proudly proclaiming what gang they belong to.
Oh, I see. All right.
I didn't catch any of that. I mean, the MS-13, they'll get an LA Lakers jersey with the number 13 on the back with their gang name across the back. Now, you're driving down the street, you think, oh, the kid's a Laker fan, he just put his own name on a jersey, which I did as a kid. You know, you went out, you got Bill Bergey's jersey, and you put your name on the back, 66. It didn't have any significance. But what we find out is that these are all signs of gang dress. We had a young man and a young woman. Their families come to Daytona Beach. I think it was last year. They decided to take a walk to the subway from the Hilton, the subway hoagie shop there on ISB. Car pulls up, a bunch of people get out of the car, beat the living crap out of these people, rob them, they get back in the car and leave. Well, further investigation reveals that the victim was wearing maybe an Atlanta Braves baseball hat, because he's from Atlanta. He's here on vacation. He has no idea what he's talking about. And these guys thought, oh, this guy's disrespecting our quote-unquote territory. That's how serious it is. And unfortunately, the gangs replace what's missing in society, where the deterioration of the family structure, the church and schools, the gangs give that. They give them structure, they give them money, they give them leadership, they give them women, they give them status. So if you have, thank God, I'm